get rolling. Now that we had the half-hour pre-conversation, we'll get into what we're actually here today to talk about, which who knows what that is. Anyways, hi everybody. This is Paul, the MF CEO of Practical Defense Solutions.
I love that.
He's here today to talk with me about firearms instruction. We've known each other for 7, 8 years?
It's been at least that, yeah.
Yeah. So, firearms instruction, church security stuff. He's got a lot of experience in all of that, so we'll let you take it away. But Paul, how do we meet? Where did you start out at in the firearms industry?
We worked together at a local gun shop. We shared some ideas I shared some ideas that I wanted to get more into the teaching space and kind of not necessarily away from the retail space, but as a complement to a retail space, and working as a range safety officer, which we both then pursued over the next couple of years. We took some training trips together.
I think we've actually only been to one
Just
class
the one,
together.
probably.
Yeah. We've taken a lot of classes over the last couple of years, but just that one trip to North Carolina back in 2019.
We did the armorers class together.
We did.
Yeah,
we
I
did.
traveled to your facility.
That's true. That's true. We did the MP5 armorer class. That was pretty cool.
That's good.
What was the most valuable class that you've taken so far?
I always come back to tactical response fighting pistol. Not necessarily yes, the pistol manipulation stuff, but the complement for mindset. Now there are other companies that appear to be taking that step as well, complementing lecture with live fire, but they were the first ones that I knew about, that I had access to, the first ones doing that, and I think that crafted my trajectory as an instructor and who I look to, what information I take in, and how I critically look at that.
Yeah, I've always found that that's a pretty difficult thing, is trying to figure out, when you don't know something about a topic, who is actually the expert in this field, and where do you go to find information.
It was much more, I would say it was much more difficult when I decided I wanted to get a concealed carry permit, whatever that was, say 15 years ago. YouTube wasn't what it is now. There wasn't subscription-based services. You weren't able to get on there were email lists, there were forums, but again, there were some good instructors on those things. It was just hard to sift them out. I was lucky enough that I probably had watched enough YouTube that I did eventually book a class with Tactical Response and start working from there. I did work with, and I can't say that Tactical Response is my first class, I did work with a local instructor in Western PA. That was a friend that we met in college. So that really was my first pistol class. I can say it was the first time that, during that class, was the first time I had a gear failure. So I had a decent pistol, I had a Smith & Wesson Shield. But the holster that I had bought had metal clips to it. I want to say it was not a crossbreed, but it was Galco's version of the leather-backed Kydex shell metal clips.
Yeah.
And I went to draw the pistol out during that, and the whole holster came out of my pants with the gun. So that was the first time that gear became an issue. Obviously, over our careers, that's on and off again. There are times where it probably doesn't matter, and times where it is really critical. But that was the first time I started to formulate my strong opinions about what is good gear.
Yeah. To this day, it doesn't have a holster with clips on it.
Will not wear a holster with clips. I've experimented with some other accessories, flashlight holders, pepper spray. That the clips are better than they ever have been. Some of the DCC monoblocks, the Ulti clips, depending on the weight and mass and how hard you're drawing it and the fabric it's holding onto or the belt it's holding onto, better than ever. But I recommend soft snap loops on everything. Yep, that's where I'm at.
I don't think you ever told me that before about the failure with the crossbreed. I've heard the strong opinions about loops versus clips,
Yeah,
but
that's where it started. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that one before. Yeah, I use clips in my holsters, but this guy not happening.
It's not a thing.
But I think that's a really good reason to take a, what do I want to say, more in-depth pistol class, is like you get to see what gear works and what gear doesn't.
Absolutely. And I think a legitimate instructor, a good instructor, will be able to spot that. And ideally, they have some gear with them that they're able to loan to you. I did loan another holster during that class. I wouldn't say it was better. Again, it was just a slightly different clip. It got us through the class. I never felt unsafe, but it definitely was a factor in getting in the way of trying to learn the mechanics that the instructor was trying to teach. I think an instructor, we both know that as an instructor, almost always we're traveling to a class with the gear that we're carrying or the gear that we're going to demo with and some additional gear, knowing that students are going to find they're not entirely happy with something, or they're going to break something, or they're going to drop it, whatever that is. So we need to have some of that. That can get expensive, and that's also where, like, some of that preparatory as an instructor is also where some of that cost comes in. Like, they need to spend hours of their time and their own money to think ahead so that they're prepared for a student when there is an issue on the line. They can do their best to correct it so they can continue going forward and getting proper reps for the student. Yeah. Especially when it comes to safety stuff. It's one thing to be reloading magazines out of your pocket, but still getting the point of the drill. It's a whole other thing to not be securely carrying a firearm on and off of the line.
Yeah, and sometimes as an instructor, like, we have to have gear that we wouldn't necessarily use. Like, I remember
for pistols, I don't necessarily carry,
Yeah, like, I remember a class where somebody wanted to work drawing out of a purse, so I put a purse on for.
Let's go.
Okay, there's a good picture of me out there somewhere. I might post that up this week. But yeah, I was working on
it here first.
You heard it here first. I'll have to post that up on the Instagram. But I was working on that for a period of time, because if I'm going to teach it, I need to know how to actually do it.
I agree. I believe that the gear space is still lacking. There are some companies out there putting some nice, like, crossbodies together. My issue is I have yet to find a company that has the mixture of good materials, like a durable material, proper zippers, and then some way to create enough rigidity inside of the bag, whether that's a purse, a fanny pack, a crossbody, whatever you like, a laptop style, like, messenger bag.
Yeah.
I have yet to see anyone who created enough stiffness and a system that a proper holster should be mounted into it, because that's my opinion of how it should be done, that you can actually get a draw stroke out of it. Yeah, there are companies, and it's unfortunate. I do think there's a spot for more females to get into the garment and the bag side of the accessory space. There's a lot of companies building things for women. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just a pocketbook. It's just a purse. Again, at least some of the companies are building a dedicated pocket for it, but there's not either enough material or there's not enough rigidity to correctly mount the gun and have it oriented correctly and also stand up to a proper draw stroke, let alone a 2-day pistol class that you're using that for.
Yeah, the other complaint that I've had from women is that I've seen some bags that are pretty good from a use perspective, but they're ugly. Like, a woman would never actually, like, wear it. So
yeah, I think men are more easily convinced. Like a black, or like, even for myself, I don't love wearing all black accessories. It kind of makes you stand out. But
I'm
like,
into the all black. That's my style for sure.
A subdued green, gray has started to become a little bit like spottable.
Yeah.
But like even like I like a little bit of texture, like slightly different colors that kind of break up that outline or make you more feel like someone who's into outdoor stuff than into gun stuff. I do think that, especially with females, the appearance is much more important. Like men are typically just function. You know, we have some students that's not always true of.
Yeah.
But I very rarely have a student come into a class in a suit. I would encourage them, if that's their daily wear, if that's what they go to the office to every day, back and forth to work, like that is the more likely time they're going to be attacked.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe they should, you know, go to Goodwill and pick up a suit jacket and at least like spend some time working their draw stroke, working combatives out of something that's going to restrict them differently than jeans and a flannel, or 511s and a hoodie. But for ladies, it has to have, for us, like as professionals, it has to have function, period. Mm-hmm. For ladies, it also needs form and fit and things that men just probably aren't adding to the accessory space right now, or at least it's not being done in a way that maintains function. Yeah, there are companies out there that are making stuff that might look good, but it doesn't retain, or it never had the function that it needed to have. Yeah,
there's definitely, I think there are some good products out there. I don't pay attention to them a whole lot, unfortunately, because I pretty much wear the same stuff every day. It's either this or I'm dressed up in a suit. Like there's not a whole lot or my workout clothes, and there's not a whole lot in between. But yeah, even on the men's side of things, like I think there's this push always to make it look tactical because it's like cool. I think that's a good segue into concealment. You know, some people...
I don't need any holster company to offer 200 Kydex colors and options. And I don't. Like, black is entirely fine. If you don't have black, I'll take whatever color, like whatever you can put together that has the function that will get it to me the fastest. But yeah,
you don't need like tiger stripe.
I tend to shop in the few holster manufacturers that I do recommend or that I've had a long-term relationship with. A lot of times you'll find like the quick ship options, like it's all black. You can't ask for special stuff. Like almost always that's me shopping from there. Yeah, unless it doesn't have the fit proper.
I'll say it if you want Filster. Buy a Filster holster.
I would say buy a Filster holster.
They don't pay us any money.
They don't. They should. Shout out John if you want to hook a brother
up. Yeah, there's a lot of good holster manufacturers out there these days. There's a lot of really terrible ones too.
A lot of really terrible ones. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, just please, for the love of God, contact a professional before you make some purchasing decisions, because we can absolutely...
Go get some holsters like in your hands or in your pants with a blue gun under professional instruction before you, like, unless you've already bought something, then I'd like you to bring it to the class and we'd like to figure it out. But if you haven't already bought something, ask that instructor, like, you know, ahead of time, you know, weeks in advance or at least several days in advance. There may be an opportunity for us to source some gear for you to test out. And at the very minimum, we can help you understand what the characteristics are that you're looking for. Maybe we could recommend a few brands before you start getting into, you know, an issue of, I bought an $80 holster, I bought a $180 holster, and it's not what you wanted.
Yeah, I think the days of, you know, the advice used to be, you're going to have a box full of holsters that you don't like. I think that's dead.
I hope not. I hope not.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I probably I have gear boxes, and there may be some holsters.
I'm thinking about it right now in my head of all this.
But stuff. I would say I still keep that, whatever that hybrid holster round was. Very first holster that I walked out of the gun store with was a generic, whatever we want to call it, the Uncle Mike's soft nylon. I actually initially left the store with it simply thinking that would be a transportation, like it would prevent the gun from getting scratched. Mm-hmm. At the time I cared about that, now I don't. But like, again, from like a storage standpoint, that's all that's good for.
Yeah.
I did have two of those that holster twice had the gun drop out, just simply because you didn't have enough. There obviously wasn't enough retention, but there wasn't enough friction that you could feel that you were losing the security of the gun, and it just simply dropped out from underneath my clothing. I hadn't realized that it had ridden up.
The same thing will happen if you just stick a gun in your pants. So
don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons to use a quality holster.
Like but nowadays I'm a big believer, and we've worked in the retail space. We've tried to influence the retail spaces that we worked in somewhat effectively.
Yeah, we had some success.
We had some success. But I think that there's not really a great excuse to leave a store without a proper holster now. I do think that it is unfortunate the number of firearms models, makes, and accessories that you can leave a store with now. It's just not possible to have high quality holsters for all of those fits and finishes.
No, from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense for them to stock.
Yeah, but like if it's a standard run of the mill, there's probably not a good excuse on that. Again, we have strong opinions that have been developed over time. Come and talk to one of us or engage us online on our social platforms. Like, we would be happy to like send you some links. I've gotten to the point with, and we'll get into, working with volunteers and guys who are coming up in an industry or are interested in something that don't have the same experience or the same access that we had. I've started building Word documents of like recommendations and links that I can send to people. Yeah. And like, so we're always, as instructors, we're much happier to do that than have you show up and you've spent a bunch of money and are already upset about it and don't really have what you want or what we realize that you need.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. That's stuff that people really need to hear. For all the gear nerds out there, what guns do you shoot, Paul?
I mostly work with or carry every day a Smith & Wesson M&P. It's currently the compact model, so if you want to say the Glock 19 of the Smith & Wesson world.
It's funny, he carries the Smith & Wesson, but still compares it to the GOAT of all concealed carry handguns.
I would happily put a Glock on. Yeah, I know there are some guys out there, some instructors that we would disagree, or, we would engage in friendly joking about that would never use a Glock for anything but a doorstop. But I would happily put a Glock on. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good, because they're the best. You should buy a Glock 19. Again,
I wouldn't try and talk you out of that. Yeah, I would. It would be ideal, and that is becoming more and more common now that if you're going to a shop that is attached to a range, to have the opportunity to take, as best you can, take two comparable models. For us, almost always we would start a student out with just a plain Glock 19 and a Smith & Wesson M&P 9 compact with comparable sights ideally, and just let them shoot that and see where they end up at the end of that exercise.
Now, whichever one you buy, it's super important to change all the parts out, right?
Absolutely not. The only thing that I regularly change on a gun is sights. I'm a fan of XS big dot sights, and I know there are haters out there, but again, picking that up, I went to Tactical Response, their Force on Force class, one of their Force on Force classes, and they had Glock, blue guns that we were using simunition out of, and they had both standard sight pistols and big dot pistols, so that you could try those out for yourself. Without question, like, you can prove to yourself that big dots are what you should have. So,
don't know that I agree with that assessment, but there's lots of options out there. If you
I have experimented and shot with other options.
You've got a red dot on a couple pistols.
Absolutely, I would not try and talk you out of a red dot.
Yeah,
I think those are at least at the moment, like separate spaces. Some guys might have really hard opinions on you should have a certain dot and these certain style or height backup iron sights. I don't have a strong opinion on that yet because I haven't spent enough time with enough different options to know. Yeah, I would absolutely say that a Trijicon RMR on your gun or one of the aim point models, some of the Holosun models would be fine as pistol sights.
Yeah.
If you're someone that wants to get into a red dot.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of options out there. Everybody's got their opinion about gear. Some people are really emotionally attached to particular pieces or brands. But again, if you get matched up with a real professional instructor, they can give you sort of a less biased take of like, hey, these are some good options. Pick one that you think is going to work out for you.
For sure. And if we personally, if we have those options available to you, or I can go and pull one out of my safe, or I can pull one out of my gearbox, why would I have no reason not to do that and to let the student decide for themselves, even if they never end up buying that. Not that I had an advantage in I was getting anything for them buying a particular brand. But if we saved them some of the hassle that we've gone through over the years of having equipment that wasn't up to what we needed, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's definitely the motivation for me, is make sure that the student has stuff that's actually going to work for them, because we're not teaching people basket weaving over here. Something that you said earlier put my mind into concealment. So you want to talk a little bit about concealed carry? Maybe concealed carry versus open carry, if there's still open carry dudes out there.
Sure. All the open carry dudes, you're wrong. You should just carry all of your equipment concealed.
That's a hot take.
Yeah, hot take. That's fine. That'll be the first one of many, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd say the exception to that would be if you're working in a uniformed capacity.
Yeah, we can get into this in the security world. There are times where we both have worked a client or a site that there was an absolute requirement to be in a very visible uniform. The client requested that we were in exposed tactical gear or belts and things like that. I'm not a fan of that. From just in general, not a big fan of working in a uniform. Even in a professional security capacity, armed security capacity, I would much rather work in plain clothes like this, or as best I can, fit with whatever the crowd will have at the time, so that I can blend and only someone could only pick me out once I've already begun to act in a scenario in my capacity. But I also I think that still directly applies to the average civilian as well, that if you're shopping at Lowe's, you don't need a bunch of extra eyes on you because you rolled in there with hardware on the outside.
Yeah.
Much rather that you were able to, even if there was a scenario where the firearm might come into play, it was justified and assuming that, I still think the responsible civilian that is concealed has the opportunity to then pick their moment, versus being spotted by the bad guy before you've had the opportunity to completely formulate a plan, or you're simply the first guy they shoot in the door.
Yeah, and we've seen plenty of that.
Yeah, and we've also, unfortunately, we've seen civilians disarmed during a fight by a bad guy, because, and again, likely civilians were not carrying their exposed firearm in a proper retention holster, and didn't have the proper retention techniques and the grappling that is required to defend the gun from a grab.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I wanted to go deeper into concealment, but how my brain works. I'm always a little bit all over the place. With you mentioning that, I think a lot of students get into their first pistol because they want something to protect themselves. Would you say that's the most important piece of self-defense, is having a handgun?
No.
That's
I
right,
guess you
right
could consider
to
that a hot take.
right to you from a professional firearms instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most important piece of gear that you need to engage every day is your mindset, like how you walk out the door and what you've done to prepare yourself to see something that is off baseline and begin acting on it while you're out living your life. Most important.
Yeah.
Yes, like having some tools are going to give you resources at the time. But again, if we started talking, like a lot of guys really like to get down, and we do, I mean, we enjoy gear as well. We like to watch pocket dump videos and things like that. Especially for people who have different life experience or different cultural, geographic space than us, is kind of interesting at this point.
Yeah.
But I would still say, even if we were down that EDC, like what are you carrying? I would still say that like a pistol isn't first. Like there are things that you are going to use every day that make your life better or make you more seamless in your transitional spaces. From an organization standpoint, that is going to expose you less to criminal action. That would be more critical pieces of your EDC before we'd start talking about pistols.
Yeah. I think my most used EDC item is my flashlight.
Oh, I would say that, yeah, I wouldn't dispute that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, having a proper flashlight, and again, no one paid us to say this, but like, I'm okay with students or guys that I work with, like, having any number of brands when it comes to a utility light. A light that you might fight with that is like life safety dependent should be a Surefire or a Streamlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a few other companies, out there right now that, we've had people come to us that are at a higher price point than that. We're starting to experiment with some technology that isn't quite reaching everyone yet, that I'm not willing to say that they aren't selling good product. I don't have enough experience with them and enough variety to entertain that.
Yeah. And there's some concern there too. Like if you want to be on the bleeding edge of like, I want the light with the most lumens and the most candela, like, if it's a weapon mount light, like is there a holster for it? Like that's a concern. Like it needs to be something that you're able to actually integrate into.
Or can it be serviced? I think you and I have, or the professional instructors out there, if guys are watching that, will know already that we're hard on stuff. And so if you have this like one amazing piece of kit, what are you going to back that up with? Or if you need to hand something off to a student, are you willing to do that? And not necessarily for us, not necessarily from a cost perspective, but just like saying like, oh, I don't have access to that piece of equipment now or temporarily while they're testing something out. Or, I mean, both of us have gone through the warranty process on something that, is a quality product. I would still buy one again, but you didn't think about until later on that you're like, oh, I don't have that piece of equipment while it's out being serviced. And the companies took good care, generally companies have taken good care of us when we've asked for warranty or service on things. You still need to buy good quality, and then you also need to think about budgeting for, do I have a backup? Do I need a backup to that piece of equipment? Lights for sure. I carry 2 flashlights regularly on a daily basis.
Yeah. I carry one on me. I usually have a second one in my bag and a third one in my car because I've broken everything at every price point and pedigree level.
Yeah.
So,
and there are definitely I have in the last few years purchased some flashlights specifically for tasks that I have not previously. In the security space, depending on the site we're working at, the time of day, the conditions, I have found that using light as a deterrent or using light to positively identify something or to generally defend a space that I can't necessarily use my feet to continuously patrol.
Yeah.
I have purchased some lights that were more expensive or had a much more narrow field of use than I had previously. But those are things that I again leave in my work bag or that I may come and grab as I know what I'm going to get into. Generally, those are also lights that are probably too big to be everyday carrying.
Yeah. Size and weight is always a consideration, especially for normal walking around stuff. Like I'm notorious for having a whole lot of stuff in my pockets, but like sometimes, like we go to run club on a regular basis.
Yeah. And that has started my new endeavor to find a way that I can securely carry more of my EDC while we're out running or just exercising in general. I think that again there are still innovations that are demanded in this space. I think Philster has something going with the Enigma. I have yet to put much time behind one of those.
Do you have one?
I don't.
To lend you
John,
one.
if you want to send us one. But I have had one on. So I think there are innovations like that going on from a good company that we recommend that they don't pay us. We like their product.
Yeah.
But I still think that there is a lot to be desired when it comes to students are constantly bringing us belly band options. I have a few myself, and I'm not at the point that I'm ready to recommend any of them. All the way from from the $80 price point to the $200 price point. I've worn them or have some of them or have had access to them. I'm not ready to say that I'm not ready to say that I would actively carry a firearm in them.
Yeah.
If you were using that for your phone, other accessories, if you need to carry like a wallet or some cards with you,
pepper spray.
Yeah. Again, we've both found that the little clips that come on them or the retention device that you thought would work maybe isn't as good, or like it's depending on your activity and the type of material that it's supposed to be grabbing onto.
Yeah.
But again, like nothing beats. I don't think anything really beats a hard-sided. Like generally, we think about Kydex pouch that you can like positively like draw the defensive implement from and then also put it back in, because there may be a time where we've gotten it out, we began to use it, or there was a time or like we decided like, okay, now's not the time and we want to put it away and escape on foot. Especially, we've talked about several times being at Run Club, like there is a time to just simply use your feet to evac the situation. It doesn't necessarily matter whether additional force would have been justified. It may just be wiser to simply move as quickly away from that situation as possible. If the person, if then we're like talking about it's a foot chase, but again, we're out there working on our cardiovascular fitness for a reason anyway. I'll give that my, sometimes that may be the first thing I test somebody with, if like if they want to criminally assault me or steal my stuff, I might just see what their cardio is like first. But there may be a time where I want to put that tool back away so that I can retain it and it doesn't become an issue in a fight where I lose it. I don't think you can really beat hard-sided form fit.
No.
But there is a time to be using something softer or a belly band style. I was really interested in like Velcro backed pieces, and I've dabbled with some of those, but I haven't found anything that I like or that I would tell students to buy yet. If you have something and want to send it to us, we'll give you a real review.
Yeah, even if you have a thing that you have a question about, like I'll just order it and maybe we'll throw a video.
I think that's a mark of a good instructor, or that you and I have both taken the opportunities that students have brought something to our attention. I'm like, I don't have one. No one at the shop we work at has one. I don't have anyone in my circle right now that has that item. So if I can justify it and make budgetary, like it fits within my budget, like absolutely I'll get a piece just to see if I like it, and also if I can help the student with that, for sure would do it.
Yeah. We just talked about a whole bunch of different gear there.
Yeah. We can keep moving. Gear is not the most important thing.
I was gonna say, if you had to boil it down to 3 EDC items If you can only put 3 items on your person, we'll count the pistol and the holster as one, if you so choose.
Okay.
Because I think they kind of go.
And
together.
we would say a flashlight. I mean, then you have your options of like, well, what am I allowed to have on my keychain or in my wallet? I guess is like, okay, that that's where you're going. Like if I had to pick one other thing, I would say that there are tools out there that again open up some opportunities for you, maybe some alternative egress situations or an opportunity to use less lethal force that could be attached to a regular keychain or say put on and off of a keychain.
This man's trying to cheat. He's like,
or
3 items,
wall.
I'm going to attach 5 to my keychain, and that's 1 item.
We never established that there were hard rules.
We didn't. We didn't. I left it
If
pretty
you're not
open-ended
cheating,
there.
you're not trying to win. And if you have to play for the stakes of your life, cheat. Like from a tactics perspective, legally and justifying use of force, like obviously there are hard lines there. But when it comes to tactics, even if we think about something that's disposable, something that I've picked up from people who have been in other places or other circumstances that we don't live in, carrying a wallet that has nothing attached to you. Maybe it even has some petty cash in it, like a throwdown wallet. I don't think that fits everyone's circumstances, especially in the United States. How we're currently living.
What places exist outside the United States that
But,
have different rules?
There would
What a
be a
concept.
time to to have something on your body that would could be considered entirely disposable, that would simply allow you to again test the bad guy's cardio. Like if they, obviously you needed to begin thinking of like, okay, what if they can keep up with me? But if I can create separation by something that I can just give up or throw away, or I think there's a lot of things in the EDC world, in the tool world, that can be attached to a keychain or put in a wallet that might help you.
Yeah.
And for sure, I think some pepper spray being the most common that we use or that we carry, other than your flashlight, which you could use as an escalating level of force depending on how you're using its beam, or it as a striking tool. But having some form of less lethal option in addition to your pistol.
Yeah, for sure. I carry a pistol everywhere that I'm legally allowed to. I carry pepper spray every time I'm carrying a handgun.
Yeah, or as much as I possibly can if I have the space within the system that I'm working in.
Yeah, it gives you more.
Run
options.
Club has definitely been testing that, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a Run Club loadout video before the next run. I think that's a good idea.
If the fans want it.
If the our 3 watchers. So talked a lot about gear. I think we talked a little bit about mindset. That's a super overused word in this industry, and I think it's thrown
Nowadays,
around. I think it's thrown around by people who really don't have an idea of what that actually means,
or they're not providing something that's really robust.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to have all the ideas. I think there are, myself, I would say, when I talk with students about mindset and tactics, I'm a product of the schools and the instructors that I've learned under.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not reinventing anything. I'm not claiming that I have the color codes figured out, or that I have a unique set of color codes, which is entirely fine. Why would we reinvent things that, I just pick and choose and share with. I tend to, if I'm in a small setting, one-on-one with a student or in a very small group, I like to be able to tailor what I kind of pick and choose and expose them to, especially in those early stages, so that I'm not overwhelming them, but they're getting something that's very tangibly related to what they're going through or why they arrived at our facility to start with.
I think that's super important. Yeah. What do you think is what does the word mindset mean to you? what encompasses that? If you're talking to a student about like building a self-defense mindset, what are some important things to consider with that?
It's hard to like narrow it down if you had to like make another word substitution. If that, but like, I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for. But say your awareness, your level of your self-awareness within the space you're in, but also awareness of what other people are doing around you. Because it is people. Generally, we're saying like criminal actors, people. Yes, you need to be aware of your environment from environmental hazards of like if you walk on a train platform every day, being aware of like your space within your environment and how close you are to areas where you would be in grave danger.
Is it icy? Am I gonna slip and fall?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, like being aware of yourself within your environment and what other hazards may be present, but then also being aware of other people who generally pose the largest threat to us when it comes to a lethal force kind of encounter.
Yeah. I think awareness of your environment is a huge thing that's lacking with a lot of people these days. I mean, people want to blame cell phones, but I mean, you can look at pictures throughout history of people standing around reading a newspaper in a public space.
Sure. And I wouldn't say that you can never do those things, but you need to be confident that you have installed some early warning system, or you've really taken the temperature of that environment where you've allowed yourself to be absorbed into a book, a newspaper, reading a briefing sheet, or reading an email on your phone.
Yeah. Where am I doing that at? What's going on around me?
Like how can I get into it? Like maybe I'm in a public space in a public hotel, or in the lobby, the public space of a hotel, I'm in the lobby. But where can I go that gives me, especially if I need quiet to concentrate, where can I go that also gives me a little bit of defensive space or some reactionary gap would be nice. Thinking that maybe you take a lap around the lobby before you decide which chair you want to sit down in. I don't think people are doing that. We always hear that people talk about where they're going to sit in a restaurant. I don't think you're taking a lap through the restaurant, but if you have the opportunity, at a bar or at a restaurant where you can, a diner where you can seat yourself and pick from the options, it may be an opportunity to kind of just visually survey of where do I think I would have the best time and space to assess that something's wrong and react to it. It's not always necessarily with you sitting flat up against the wall.
Yeah. To some people that might sound paranoid. Like, I've had a lot of people say when you sort of explain some of those concepts that sounds taxing and overwhelming, and they just don't want to think about that kind of stuff. Like, what would you say to somebody who that's
if you concern? Slowly start to integrate some of those principles into your lifestyle, it just becomes habit or something that you're doing. It's not something that you're overly anxious about. There may be some differences for us as security professionals when I have to take maybe a client that I just met into a space that I don't know with no advance. Like that's a time where I'm on edge. I'm a little anxious about that. And I am trying my very best to be locked in and looking at every option and every route and every opportunity. But living the rest of my life, just like when you hop into your car, that's an when we talk about mindset or awareness, hopping into your car, before we back out of our parking space, we're going to put our seatbelt on, we're going to adjust whatever that you need, put your phone up on the holder, put your whatever music you're on, the podcast you're on, finish your call or start whatever call, whatever you need to be doing, get the GPS up, make sure that you adjust, the mirrors are adjusted to you, especially if you're driving a vehicle that's shared between a team or shared between family members. Everything's the way you want it so that everything's at your fingertips. You can be monitoring multiple things at the same time. Driving a car, it's kind of interesting. That's an interesting parallel. People don't generally, once we get out of that stage of you're learning to drive and learning how to merge onto the highway with all those things, we don't think that much. We don't necessarily consider someone paranoid about how they are driving their car,
Mm-hmm.
but they are having to monitor multiple inputs and react to those, or react to the other people around them and how they're driving. We're not overly concerned about that, or we wouldn't consider that paranoid. It's just how we do things.
I think that's a really good analogy, actually. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. I think the biggest thing that you hit on there, it doesn't have to be an all at one time thing, and you're not constantly walking around looking for, does this guy have a gun? Who's going to step out with a knife and stab me to death? It's just setting your life up in a way that mitigates some risk.
I'm trying to read the baseline. Every time I go somewhere, I'm trying to establish, what do I already know about that space, especially in the city and the town that we live in. I might already have some baseline of like what normally occurs there, how the patrons normally act, how does the staff normally act. But I'm quickly, even if I'm going into an unknown environment, I'm trying to read what's going on in the room, what does appear normal, what is everyone else doing, how is everyone else acting. That way I'm starting to set some parameters that I know if someone begins to act off of that baseline, now I can start enacting my defensive plan, whatever that was. Again, that's as I'm sitting down at the table, maybe I have glanced at some exits and I've thought about, or I've talked with the people that I'm with, hey, this is going to be the first place we're going to head. If, a lot of people get stuck on the way that they came in and out of a restaurant, a venue, and that is the only option in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
But casually just taking a lap around, or at some point like taking
when you get up to go to the bathroom.
I was just going to say that. Of like, we took an opportunity that we already got up out of our seat and we're seeing a different part of that facility. It's an opportunity to like poke down a hallway, or look through the door to the kitchen, or through the window, and see what the other options are that you may have not been able to see when you first entered.
Yeah, I think that's a super reasonable.
And it's, again, if you're taking those incremental steps to make that a part of something you just naturally do, it doesn't feel that weird. It definitely might feel weird when someone first exposes that to you, and you think about, you have a lot of things on your mind when you're first starting to assess a new environment. But if you're taking it progressively, it won't feel that weird.
Yeah. I think, is there anything else that you have for the self-defense crowd, people who are just getting into thinking about improving their personal level of safety, whether it's at home or out in public?
Just in general. We know that there is a reason that there are professional instructors out there. I'm not saying that you can't learn things from blog posts, Instagram. It used to be magazines for, at least for myself, magazine articles. I'm not saying you can't learn from the books. I'm a big fan of actual hard books that you have in your bookshelf. Build yourself a library. You absolutely can learn from them. There is a time where you want to begin assembling some of the more complex tasks or some of the simpler techniques under professional guidance, so that they can help you adjust or correlate those things together. So when we hear this a lot, like, oh, you need training. Other trainers in the industry are constantly harping on, like, yes, you need training. But like, if we had to break that down for students, well, why? You will have an advantage if you are physically in person under the eyes of a professional who has seen hundreds or thousands of people repeat that exercise or that motion. They're just able to spot things that you can't necessarily. Or they're able to immediately make a correction and describe to you what it is they want you to be able to do, or what you need to be feeling during that motion, or whatever task you're working on, that you're then able to know what you're taking with you home to practice. And I think that's a big element that people are missing. Like, yes, you should go and practice. You should go and get professionally supervised training. But during that training, you should be capturing tasks and details for you to take home and integrate into your lifestyle, but two, into your, if we're talking firearms again, like into your dry practice. And into your opportunity when, you're at the house and you just received something in the mail and you have a new piece of kit. What is your protocol for like unboxing that material, cleaning it, trimming it?
You get a holster, Loctite the screws,
making sure it's squared away, and then going through an opportunity to test that gear in a private setting, ideally with a blue gun, or with some other kind of inert training tool, if that's something you have an opportunity to, or a prop that you've made for yourself, before you then expose it and you're out in a public environment where there's greater cost if something fails. And you have a lot of other things you need to be paying attention to.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up. I think we'll go take a break and come back and talk about some of the church security stuff. Cool.